Okay, welcome to the Mental Approach podcast, where we discuss mindfulness, mental performance, and the tools available for coping in a high performance world. I am your host, Todd Arkell, and today joining me is Diamyn Hall, the mental performance coach for the Baltimore Orioles. Welcome.
Todd, appreciate you having me. Excited for the conversation today.
Me as well. I mean, this podcast has been a long time coming. I've been getting a lot of people urging me to do it. And the interesting thing is because I've been talking about it for a while, and just to give the listeners an idea of how we lose perspective of time sometimes in our worlds. I wanted to go back because this all came about. I've been thinking about mental performance. I mean, obviously I have a young athlete in the house and thinking about, what can they do better? And that this was a really important part of things. And I remembered, this kind of came about. I started thinking about it more deeply because of a video I came across on Twitter. And I said, yeah, that was like 3 or 4 years ago. And then I went back into my DMs and I found the video. It was July 2017, where a young man was in his car and he opened with hitters. Give me a minute of your time so I can provide you a minute for your mind. Let's make a trade. Meet me halfway. And that was you. And I reached out to you and was like, wow, man, I really think this is great. And you started to tell me a little bit about what you were doing, and you were at Wright State and as a mental performance coach. And it was like one of the first ones in college, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
first in history.
Yeah. And I was kind of blown away, and I thought, oh man, we got to do something together, the two of us. And then I kept talking about it to friends. Oh, this has got to do this. This has got to happen. We got to do something. And then I look back and I go, oh my God, 2017. That's like a long time ago. And I just kind of let it go. And, anyways, we're here today. So let me first start. I mean, take you back to Wright State, but so how does this happen? I know you were a baseball player.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess that if you had your druthers, you would have been playing in the big leagues or still playing baseball. So what prompted you to kind of go this way with your career?
I think it actually started when I was Todd. It started when I was 14. So I had a neck injury. I was a football player at the time, and I was one of the top running backs in the country. I'd put all of my time, all of my effort, all of my energy into the game of football. And I remember it like it was yesterday. Our quarterback threw a pass to our tight end, and I was at the slot. So I was running a streak route, and I looked back and he had fumbled the ball. And so I remember going full speed towards the football, and I dove, and I saw one of the defenders diving for the ball too. But I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to get it. I'm a little bit bigger than he is, et cetera, et cetera. Dove for the loose fumble, elevated above the ground. And I remember going like head on with this guy. Next thing I knew, I was like staring at the sky. And my teammates were surrounding me saying, Diamyn, get up, Diamyn, get up, Diamyn, get up. And I remember looking over at my best friend at the time, Ryan Bayer. And I looked at him and I told him that I couldn't move. And he starts like tearing up in that moment. And we both looked at each other and realized I was paralyzed from my neck down.
Wow.
And in that moment, as a 14-year-old, I had to come to peace that was it. I'd seen this on TV. I'd seen people get paralyzed from the neck down and then have to get fed through a tube. I thought that was going to be my life from that point on. So we get in the ambulance truck and they take me to the hospital. A few days later, I ended up getting my feeling back. Doctors came in and said, hey, this is an absolute miracle. We ran all the tests. Here's what we've got. We've got good news and we've got bad news for you. I was like, well, let's start with the good news. So the good news is you're walking, like your fingers are working, your body is working, your legs are working. The paralysis has dwindled away. But the bad news is that you have something called congenital stenosis. And I remember thinking to myself, like, what's congenital stenosis? So I asked the doctor, what's congenital stenosis? And he goes, it's narrowing of fluid around your spine. Everyone has a certain amount of fluid around their spine, and you have a significantly less amount than the average human, which is why when you dove for the loose fumble, you were paralyzed from the neck down. And he said, "We can't clear you to play football anymore." And I remember thinking to myself in that moment, I remember getting kind of lightheaded and just like my brain going back to all of the time, all of the effort, all of the energy I'd put into this game. I mean, the goal was to get to the NFL. I mean, I think at that game we had Cincinnati at that game. I was getting recruited heavily. We had Cincinnati, we had Ohio State. I mean, and so it was devastating for me. So I had to find a way to bounce back from this adversity. My mom was growing up, she was a psychologist and a teacher, raised me on positive psychology. So she trained my brain to find no matter what you face, every piece of adversity, you find a way to flip it into a positive and use it to your advantage. And so for the next 2 months, it was tough. Finally came to the conclusion that they didn't clear me to play basketball either, but finally came to the conclusion that I was going to pick up baseball. Had never played before. So I started doing all the research. I'm like, okay, this is going to be the thing. Can't play football, can't play basketball. Can still ran track, but I'm not an Olympic type athlete. Made it to state, but it still wasn't. Baseball is the way to go, right? Started studying the game, jumped on the team at Alter High School, and one of my in summer baseball played for the Dayton Classics. Greg Beeman was our head coach. His son is now the head coach at Butler. One of my teammates during practice, it was a 5-tool guy. One of my teammates during practice, he walks up to me afterwards and he goes, "Hey, I want you to have this." I said, "Have what?" And he pulled something out of his book bag, and it was a book. And I looked down at the book and it said Heads Up Baseball by Dr. Ken Ravizza and Dr. Tom Hansen. And he was like, if you study this and if you master this side of the game, you're going to go further than all of us. And I was like, go further than all of us? Like, what do you mean? He's like, you're going to go further than everybody out on this field, all of your peers. He was like, I know you're playing catch up. You know, we've been playing our whole lives, but if you study this part of the game with what you have, your gifts, you can pull it off. And so I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to study this. So started going through the book, and it was game changing. You know, football and baseball are such different games. Like in the game of baseball, you have an at bat and you have to wait 30 minutes, whether that at bat went well or not. You have to wait 30 minutes for your next at bat. So the thoughts and the feelings and all of the things that could go right or wrong between that 30 minutes is totally up to how well you're controlling your mind. And in football, you make a mistake, you literally have a few seconds to redeem yourself. And everything in that book, started studying it, put it into practice, and just became really, really passionate about that side of the game, the mental side of the game. And the bookshelf started to grow from there. And just started studying like the highest performers, what their mentality was like, what mental skills that they focused on better than everybody else, the Tom Brady's, the Mike Trouts, the Derek Jeters. Even started studying coaches towards once I went to my JUCO. So anyways, ended up catching up to my peers and passing my peers, and through just rigorous work on the physical side and the mental side, got a scholarship to Lincoln Trail Community College. And actually, rewind, before that, I was getting recruited, and when I went to Western Kentucky this was with the Dayton Classics, went to a tournament. And at the time, Jeff Mercer was one of the assistant coaches there. And he said, I remember seeing you like in the dugout, like before games, like reading that book and then going in and put it into practice, focusing on your breathing in between pitches so you can stay calm, cool, and composed for your at bats. Like I saw you studying it and then doing it. And so I ended up not going to Western Kentucky. Ended up going to the JUCO, Lincoln Trail. Was there for 2 years. I also remember being there, and our head coach at the time, Kevin Bowers, he gave me a book called The Mental Game of Baseball by Harvey Dorfman. It had 3 balls on the front, and it was a thick book. It's a thick one, and I was like, "It's like Bowers, you want me to read this?" He was like, "Yes." He was like, "I see you studying the mental side of the game. You're going to love this one too." So I started studying that. And So ended up doing well there. Got a scholarship to a D1 down south, Grambling State University, and got there. And my junior year, that was my junior year, was hitting like 375. 7 games into the season, doing really, really well. This is a draft year, on the draft board, et cetera, and went 4 for 4 on TV. The very next day, we were playing against the University of New Orleans and tore my ACL in the outfield. I remember that night, our head coach at the time, James Cooper, who's now a manager in the Yankees organization, he comes in and we're like in the hotel and I'm doing all of my stretches, all of the stuff that the athletic trainers told me to do. Because at the time we didn't know it was torn yet. It was just swollen. And he he looks at me and he's watching me in the fitness room, like doing all of my exercises, and he starts tearing up. And at that time, I think he knew that it was torn. So ended up doing all of the MRIs and all of the things. Results came back on my birthday that year, and it was torn. So I went back home, did surgery with the Reds, and did physical therapy with them. Came back bigger, faster, stronger. Got away from the mechanical things that I was doing. Tried to add a big leg kick, and just went away from the things that allowed me to be successful before. So didn't end up hitting like I was supposed to. So ended up finishing up my career at Georgia Southwestern State University, and at that time I knew the career was kind of coming to an end. So became kind of a player coach on that staff. Mentoring the younger guys, coaching them up on the mental side of the game, running a few workshops here and there on leadership and mental skills, everything that I'd learned. And then after their career was finished, or after that last game, reconnected somehow with Jeff. And at the time, now Jeff is he's at Wright State. And they've got a long history of focusing on the mental side of the game. You had Rob Cooper there, you had Rob Cooper, and then you had, it was just a long list of guys who built the foundation for the mental side of the game there. And then, Mercer and I connected, and he was like, "Hey, I want to do something that's never been done before. And I think you're the guy for the job." So I was like, what do we want to do? And he was like, "I want you to be our full-time mental skills coach. And there are 3 things that I want us to build the system around." He was big on systems. He's the one who got me thinking in terms of like systems development, et cetera, et cetera. He said, we want to win championships. We want our guys to be the most mentally tough in all of college baseball. And we want to help our guys get drafted. I want you to build the mental skills system around those 3 things. I was like, okay, done. And so we built the system that year. We won a conference championship. We did all the things, and it was such a. I look back on my career as I'm talking this through with you. I've been lucky and blessed enough to come across so many great leaders and coaches. Being able to coach under Jeff. At the same time, I look over to in the coach's office, and we've got Matt Tallarico, who's with the Yankees. Doing the base running, and then we had Alex Sogard, and then we had Nate Metzger. Like, that staff was an all-star staff. So to be able to look around every day and learn from those guys, and at the same time be empowered to develop the mental skill system there, special opportunity. Even when I was at Grambling State, James Cooper, he was also big on the mental side of the game. Gave me a book called Mind Master.
So let me take you to
Yeah.
the interesting thing is you talk to people and they, you talk about this and a lot of people go, it's woo woo. It's, it's kind of weird. I don't know, mindfulness and meditation and all these things. Like, how was it received? Like when you, went to Wright State, even, we'll talk a little bit about when your time at IMG, but how was it received by the players? Like, did they sort of fight it, or did they kind of say, okay, we're all in? How did it go?
When I got on staff at Wright State, I think the first thing that players do is they get a feel for who you are as a person, what kind of energy you bring every day, the intensity that you bring, the enthusiasm that you bring, your character. And I think that first I mean, as soon as I got on staff, I was proactive. And I think that's one place that I've separated myself throughout my career. I mean, I called every guy on our roster, asked them what they did well the year before and what they wanted to improve on from a mental standpoint, the upcoming year. So before I'd even met them in person, I kind of tackled that up front. And I also sat down with Mercer and we went through the roster and he walked me through each guy and what he was also big on the mental side of the game, what he felt like they needed to work on and improve, whether it was composure, whether it was resilience, whether it was their focus, being able to play present, whether it was their confidence, their body language. So I think the collaboration within the staff, but then also being proactive with the players before they even met me in person, so they could hear me, so they could, feel my energy, so they could know how passionate I was about it, and that I already cared about them without even meeting them. I think that played a role in the buy-in that we ended up getting that year.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I find, I've talked to some different hockey players that play at a high level that, they said when they were younger, 16, 17, they were like, this, I don't know what this is. This is weird. I'm not going to sit there and meditate. Like you think about it, I think it's unnatural. I think for some people, they don't want to sit there and try to clear their mind or whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it, right? Or visualize other things. But there's so much information out there showing you that that's a positive thing. So I wore the little IMG thing here, because I've spent some time down there. It's an unbelievable, like it's a high school, but it's like a college. It's crazy, the campus, and you were fortunate enough to be there for a period of time. And I wanted to ask you, there was a kid there when I was down. I got to see him play a few times, and there was tons of people there. His name was Elijah Green. A lot of people probably recognize that name. He's in the Washington Nationals organization now, and he was built like a linebacker, and he was a center fielder. But what struck me was every time he came to the plate, the crowd cheered, underrated, and it just was unrelenting. Like, if you can you share, like, how did he deal with that? Was that just a one-off, or is that something that happened a lot? It's really interesting to me. Like, he played well in that game, but it was just the jeers to me as a player. How do you not hear that, and then how do you tune that out?
Yeah. So the year that I met Elijah, worked with him for 2 years. I think the first year I met him was my first year, and we were still building the systems in our leadership department, and we did 30-minute workshops on how to be a leader, body language, composure, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember, I mean, every time he sat in the front, and we ended up building a good relationship over a course of time. And I also want to point out that he had a great relationship with JFG, who's the hitting coordinator at IMG. JFG is also big on the mental side of the game. So the collaboration between myself, JFG, and then our head coach at the time, Dave Turgeon, who was also, I mean, he was with the Pirates for quite a while as a field coordinator, understands, behavior change, what it takes to compete under pressure, how to stay poised under, like, we collaborated so well, and then included him in the loop. And, our focus was development. And I've been lucky to be within programs that's the main focus. Even being here now, like, our main focus every day is development. But at IMG, we were focusing on development. So that was one of the things that Elijah did a really good job of staying composed, blocking out the noise. And I have never seen in my entire career someone get heckled as much as he did, with the amount of people each game that were heckling. I have never seen anything. We would go on the road, and there would be people in our hotels, like, heckling us walking in, and specifically pointing it towards him. And to your point, there'd be games where we'd have the stands full, and if we were away, the crowd was like against. You would have half and half. You would have half the crowd against him, half the crowd like
Sure.
absolutely for him. And when I look back, he was what, 17, 18. He did a fantastic job of putting those skills of composure and in resilience and in leveraging pressure to his advantage at a very, very high level for his age. And I mean, when he would do that, he showed everyone else, all of his peers, exactly what it looked like to be composed under pressure, to have people in the stands like yelling your name and saying like looking up all of your information and yelling those things out, whether it was good or bad, and still staying here, never getting too high, never getting too low, and still finding a way to come through during those moments. He was the example for that group.
Right. Yeah. Amazing. Like I was, I was shocked at like the negativity to I was like, hey man, this kid's like one of the top prospects in the country and you're showing him hate. You should be here going, this is what a treat, but people are people. and,
Bingo. I was just
and
having
they
this
get
conversation. Todd, I was just having that conversation with the strength and conditioning coach with the minor league strength and conditioning coach with the Yankees last week. And I mean, sometimes we, as a society, we struggle. So we have greatness right in front of us, and then we choose to go that route instead of appreciating, like, wow, we get to watch, this awesome athlete do what he's been working on every day. But we choose to go, some of the population chooses to go the other route. It's such an interesting,
well,
interesting thing.
well, yeah. Well, let me pivot. So last night, at the time of this recording, Diamond's Orioles, big league club, played my hometown Toronto Blue Jays. I will reference the fact that I'm not a Jays fan, so that's okay. So I go as a baseball fan, and I wanted to see the Orioles play. And there was some individuals near me that constantly the whole game, you suck, Rushman, whatever, just on everybody's case. And I just laugh. I'm going like, do you really think they're paying attention to you? Like, and the one thing that really struck me about that big league roster was they were calm the whole game. Like, regardless of what happened in the box, they just seemed sort of peaceful, deep breath in between pitch, whatever their little routine was, whether it's snap the gloves or tap the bat or whatever, very, very calm. And they absolutely raked last night. I don't even know what the final score was. I left in the 7th. The Jays were not coming back. Um, but the reality is I found that to be something interesting. So tell me about that. Is that something you guys are really preaching at all levels? Is that calmness?
Composure is something that we preach from the top down. Those guys at the big league level, they're a great example for our guys at AAA, Double A, High A, all the way down. And that hitting staff too. You've got Boards, you've got Fuller, you've got Ash. They're all pretty big on the mental side of the game, and they're there with them every single day, nailing those things home. And I mean, within our organization, we focus on development. So when you talk about seeing their pre-pitch routines, their pre-pitch process, focusing on their breathing in between pitches in order to set themselves up to win the next pitch, that's something that we are focusing on every day to get our guys in the habit of doing to set them up specifically with our minor league guys to set them up for success to be able to contribute to our varsity team winning a World Series. So we reverse from a mental skill standpoint, and this is something that I learned at when I was at Wright State. If I didn't have Mercer, I wouldn't think this way. We reverse everything from World Series habits. Like if you were in a World Series, you're going to need a pre-pitch routine that includes you flushing the last pitch, focusing in, taking a deep breath to get your mind clear and relax your body to win the next pitch. These are habits of that you're going to need in the World Series, and so we try to reverse engineer everything that we teach from a mental skill standpoint, whether we're talking about discipline, whether we're talking about resilience, composure. whether we're talking about their focus, being able to compete one pitch at a time, whether we're talking about their confidence, their self-talk, their body language. Everything we do is framed in the World Series frame. So it's good to hear that you were able to see visibly those guys putting those things into practice.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I mean, I expect that a lot of big league players, but it isn't always an entire roster either when you see that, right? So there's some guys that, maybe are better at it than other, but it just seemed like 1 through 9 at the plate, they were very, even watching Adley Rushman comes out of the dugout and he's going to be on deck, but he's just come in and had to get his gear off and he's still getting dressed. And I watch him, he went hips, like Gosman was warming up and he went hips back, hips forward. Like he wasn't, he was already mentally getting ready for what is the timing. Yeah, you're on deck and you're going to be doing that. So, but he wasn't even on deck yet. He was just kind of getting his stuff together and was still trying to get that visualization going. And to me, that's special stuff. Like not a lot of people watch the game in certain ways. I was actually really intently looking at that last night, mostly because I knew we were going to have our conversation today, and I wanted to ask a few things about it. So tell me, I could say what's the best part about your job, but there's probably lots of things you love. But maybe what are the things you enjoy about what you're doing now with this opportunity that you got with the Orioles?
Yeah, I think a few things come to mind. When I first came on staff during the interview process, I was having a conversation with Matt Blood, and he said, Diamyn, you're coming in, you've got a blank canvas. And for me, I love to build. I love to have a vision, and then over time, get everybody on board with that vision in order to impact the people that we're here to impact, which is our players. So the opportunity to build specifically our mental skill systems. The second thing is the collaboration piece. The collaboration piece with our coaches is probably that's probably my number one favorite, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, across the board, we focus on development. And the coaches that you come across, including myself within this organization, we're all passionate about it. And for me, I'm passionate about the development when it comes to the mental skills. Our hitting coaches are passionate. Our hitting coaches and hitting coordinators are passionate about the development when it comes to hitting and the things, the specific key things that they focus on within the hitting department. And then same thing with our pitching coordinators and pitching staff. So same thing with our managers, our fundamentals coaches, our development coaches, and being able to collaborate with them and build reinforcement strategies for our players with each staff is probably my favorite part. I think a lot of people in this industry, I've seen them want to be the only person talking about the mental side of the game for whatever reason. And I think that is actually counterproductive. In order to get full buy-in, in order to create real impact, in order to reinforce behaviors, in order to create behavior change, in order to improve these mental skills that we're talking about, everybody has to be on board. One of the things that last year when we won a national championship at IMG, Turge, being able to work under Turge, I mean, it totally just like it was working with Mercer. He helped my development so much. One thing that he would always say is it's going to take all of us to make this work. And he was big on that mental side of the game and the leadership piece. And we would have conversations about a specific guy after a game and identify the specific skills that this specific guy needed to work on. And Turge, like he operated like everything he did was chess. And now I think this way as well. So when you have a guy who needs to improve with a specific skill, you get everybody on board to watch that kid practicing that skill, that player practicing that skill, and then you catch them doing good and positively reinforce when they're doing things well. So he would have me, like, let's say a guy needed to work on his composure and staying even keeled after striking out. He would have everybody on staff go up to that guy throughout the course of the week and have strategic conversations about staying even keeled, about handling adversity well, about staying composed, and to the point where that guy's hearing it from everybody on the staff. And when he does it well, he's being positively reinforced, whether it's the athletic trainer, the nutrition coach, the strength and conditioning coach. Everybody was a part of the strategic plan to help that person, to help that kid, to help that player improve with that specific skill. And I believe that that is the best way to approach the development of mental skills.
Yep. No, I mean, I think everybody likes what I call an attaboy. Everybody likes a pat on the back here and there, and
Yeah.
you know, I think there's room to be torn down a little bit too for behavior and told different things, and but if you have both, right, then you know that the we'll call it the constructive criticism, although not always delivered constructively. At least the player knows it's coming from a place of love, not a place
Yeah.
of hate, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
interesting. So I'm gonna wrap a little bit here, but I want to end these sessions with asking some questions that I'm going to ask of all guests, and then
Yeah.
hopefully we can compile some of that stuff. So I know we've mentioned a few books, but if for those listening, what's one book if they were interested in mental performance or trying to understand a little bit more about the mental side of any sport? What's one book you would suggest for them to read right now?
Can I give two?
Absolutely.
Sure. The first would be The Mental Game of Baseball by Harvey Dorfman.
Yep.
If you're a hitter, it would be The Mental ABCs of Hitting by Harvey Dorfman. If you're a pitcher, it'd be The Mental ABCs of Pitching. And then, so after those three, you also have Heads Up Baseball. That's an original. You start with those four, then you're going to have a pretty good understanding of baseball specific mental skills. I think
Sure.
that's also important for everybody listening to.
No, absolutely. So then if somebody doesn't know anything, and let's just say it doesn't even matter what sport they play, but they go, okay, I know I got to get stronger mentally. I got to, got to do this, create my focus. What's one small change you could suggest they make in their daily routine? And I can't remember, I've seen a lot of different people. I mean, I know one change that I think I need to make in my daily routine, but, for somebody wanting to get started here, what is one thing that they could do to kind of get started on this journey?
I would say, man, a few things come up. If somebody just wants to get started with improving their mental performance,
Absolutely. Yep.
the lowest hanging fruit would be going and buying a journal and every single morning writing down what your goals are for the day. That's number one. Number two, second thing, and this is strategic journaling. This isn't just journaling, like writing down your feelings, et cetera, et cetera. So the first thing would be, what are the goals for today that you want to achieve? The second thing is how do you want to show up today? Like what kind of energy do you want to bring today? And if you write that down, your brain, we have something called a reticular activating system. Your brain will find ways to and opportunities for you to show up that way. So this morning when I wrote down my bullet points for number two, it was enthusiastic, poised, and energetic. Those are the three things that I wrote down. And your brain will just find opportunities to do those things. But then at the end of the day, you also have to have a reflection and acceleration process, 2 to 3 minutes, maybe even 1 minute, where you write down what are the things that went well today. Like what were the wins on the day? So often we're so critical of ourselves when we forget to like reflect back and look at all of the great things that we did. I'm talking about even the small things, even a small interaction that you had
Sure.
with somebody throughout the course of the day. Write as many of those as you can, and then the next thing that you write down at the end of the day are the goals. Like, hey, what are the goals for tomorrow? So it's a continuous cycle. The where I learned this was from the bullet journal. I forget the author, but the book is called The Bullet Journal. He has a fantastic journaling process that totally changed the course of my life, the course of my career, and so many others too.
Great. No, that's awesome. So then this one's always hard, but and maybe you're somebody who's given it some thought, but if you go back to teenage you, what advice could you give teenage you now?
Yeah,
I mean, you went through some adversity, but it's
yeah,
interesting, right? Like, and
yeah.
you made it through. Maybe it was your mom with all the positive self-talk, but what's something you'd probably say to yourself if you could think about it?
Yeah. That I would tell that version of myself that a big part of playing the game of life and feeling fulfilled every day begins and ends with giving and contributing to other people. When you put that at the forefront of your mind in everything that you do, the quality of your life will shoot through the roof. You can still, focus on your own goals, but when you put other people and giving and contributing and adding value to other people on a day-to-day basis at the forefront of your mind, it's awesome. And I would tell that version of myself to, I mean, especially at that age, we're all, when we're in high school, we're just focusing on ourselves. And
Yeah.
I mean, even when you get to college, even sometimes even after college. But I think what I've learned and the most fulfilling part of when you study the most successful people in the world, the one of the consistent themes outside of them being relentless, outside of them being very ambitious, et cetera, one of the consistent themes that comes up is their focus to contribute to other people in a positive way. I think I would have given myself that alley oop a little bit earlier.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's interesting, and I'll tease ahead a future guest. I've got Jeremy Sheets coming on, and he's a big proponent of service led leadership. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
something I'll be digging into with him. It definitely is. I think you're right if you put others ahead of yourself, and
yeah,
we're not always great at that, but that's it definitely makes a difference in how things go. So my
oh yeah.
last question is, what is the this could be you could go, could I give you five? What is the best piece of advice people have given you? Somebody has given you, and maybe even who was it that gave you that advice?
Um,
There's probably lots, but just pick one.
yeah. First, you got to tell Sheets whenever you have Sheets on. You got to tell him that the Diamond said hello. It's been a
I
while since we've
absolutely
caught
will.
up.
Yeah.
Man, the biggest piece of advice I know it's probably come from Justin Sewer. He's poured into me so much throughout the course of my career. I would say the thing that comes to top of mind for me is actually pretty recent coming from him. He said, "Let the game come to you when you step on staff with the Orioles." And what I took from that was be proactive and at the same time, exude patience and let the game come to you. There will be so many organic opportunities to impact and develop and coach, and be prepared before your name is called. So definitely the thing that comes to top of mind for me from Justin
Yeah,
Sewell.
no, that's he's yeah, I like him. He's got a lot of good stuff. There's so many people. Then there actually I lied. There is one more question. Who would you, if you were me, who would be somebody you would try to get as a guest on this show?
Justin,
There you go.
for sure.
We'll
He's
put that
he's
in,
been
put that into the universe.
have to. He's been a fantastic mentor for me.
That's awesome.
Man, it would be a treat to be able to
Yeah,
have him
I
on. He's
maybe
a
I'd
good
be a
guy.
little intimidated, but yeah, he's he's pretty good. He's a pretty good guy. So, what I want everybody to know is in the show notes, we'll have links to Diamyn socials and different things so you can follow him. And along his journey, I can tell you, go back through his, I guess it's X now, not Twitter. Go back. He's got some great videos. I mean, honestly, it was, you are an authentic human being, like very, right from the start. I just picked up on it. I knew there was something there, and I'm amazed at, how far you've come. It's only been 8 years. I've been sitting around talking about doing this for 8 years, and you've been actually doing it. And now look where you are, from, a little guy on Twitter in his car working at Wright State to the Baltimore Orioles. It can happen. It can definitely happen. So I want to ask everybody listening to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you for joining us.
Appreciate you, Todd.